Imagine a vast, sprawling civilization, not in a desert or along a single great river, but hidden deep within the lush, green heart of the Central American jungle. This was the world of the ancient Maya. For centuries, they were not just survivors in this challenging environment, they were masters of it. Their cities, like Tikal and Palenque, were not small villages but immense metropolises of stone, with towering pyramids that scraped the sky, grand palaces for their kings, and bustling marketplaces. The Maya were brilliant astronomers. They studied the movements of the sun, moon, and planets with such precision that they created calendars more accurate than any in Europe at the time. They were sophisticated mathematicians, developing the concept of zero long before it reached the Western world. And they had a complex system of writing, carving their history, their rituals, and their beliefs into stone monuments for all to see. At the heart of Mayan society was a powerful king, often seen as a link between the people and the gods. These kings led their people in war, presided over sacred ceremonies, and ensured the favor of the gods for rain and good harvests. The jungle provided for them, and they, in turn, built a culture of immense wealth and intellectual achievement. For over 1,000 years, the Maya flourished. Their civilization was one of the most dominant and sophisticated in the entire ancient world. But then, something went terribly wrong. Around the 8th and 9th centuries, the heartbeat of this great civilization began to falter. The construction of magnificent temples and palaces suddenly stopped. The carving of stone monuments, which had recorded their history for generations, ceased. The great cities, once teeming with life, grew quiet. It was as if the entire civilization, from kings to commoners, simply walked away from their homes and vanished into the jungle, leaving their incredible achievements behind as a haunting mystery for future generations to discover. For centuries, the question has haunted archaeologists and historians: what happened to the Maya? The ruins of their magnificent cities, slowly being reclaimed by the relentless jungle, stood as silent, enigmatic tombstones. The suddenness of their decline seemed baffling. Early theories often pointed to a single, catastrophic event. Perhaps a massive, violent invasion by an unknown enemy had wiped them out? But evidence for such a widespread war was scarce. There were no signs of a conquering army leaving a distinct cultural mark across the entire region. Another popular theory suggested a great, society-wide revolution, where the common people rose up and overthrew their elite rulers and priests. While this is a dramatic idea, it does not fully explain why the entire population would then abandon their homes and cities entirely, never to return. The mystery was so profound that it even sparked more imaginative, and often sensational, ideas. Some wondered if a mysterious, unstoppable disease, like a terrible plague, had swept through the population. Others looked to the stars, suggesting an asteroid or comet impact, similar to the one that doomed the dinosaurs. However, no crater or widespread evidence of such an impact has been found. The truth, as scientists are now discovering, was not a single, Hollywood-style disaster. There was no invading army, no rebel uprising, and no alien intervention. The real story is far more complex, and in many ways, more terrifying. It is a story that serves as a cautionary tale for our own modern world. The fall of the Maya was not caused by something from the outside, but by a perfect storm of problems that came from within their society and their changing environment. It was a slow-motion collapse, where a series of interconnected crises amplified each other, leading to a point of no return. To understand the collapse, we must first understand the foundation of Mayan power, their population. At its peak, the Mayan civilization was incredibly successful, and this success led to a population boom. Imagine the landscape not as an empty jungle, but as a densely populated region, with cities, towns, and farmlands supporting millions of people. To feed this enormous population, the Maya became expert farmers. They cleared vast tracts of forest to plant their main crops, like corn, beans, and squash. They built elaborate terrace farms on hillsides and converted swamps into fertile fields using complex networks of canals. Their agricultural system was a marvel of engineering. However, this very success contained the seeds of its own destruction. As the population continued to grow, the demand for food and resources grew with it. More and more forest was cut down to create new farmland and to provide wood for construction and for burning limestone to make plaster for their buildings. This large-scale deforestation began to alter the local environment in subtle but significant ways. Trees are crucial for a healthy ecosystem. Their roots hold soil in place, preventing erosion, and their leaves release moisture into the air, which helps to form clouds and produce rain. As the forests shrank, the land became more vulnerable. The stage was being set for an environmental crisis. The Maya, in their drive to sustain their booming civilization, were unknowingly weakening the very systems that kept their world alive and productive. They were living in a delicate balance with nature, and that balance was about to be shattered. Now we come to the crucial piece of new evidence that has helped scientists solve this ancient mystery. By studying natural records like sediment cores from nearby lakes and cave formations like stalagmites, researchers have been able to reconstruct a precise history of the climate in the Mayan region. What they found was a terrifying revelation. The collapse of the classic Maya civilization coincided almost perfectly with a period of extreme and prolonged drought. This was not just a few dry years, it was a devastating megadrought that lasted for decades, with some periods of over a century receiving significantly less rainfall than normal. Think about what this meant for the Maya. Their society, their very survival, was entirely dependent on seasonal rains. Their sophisticated agricultural systems, their reservoirs, and their canals were all designed to manage normal variations in rainfall. They were not prepared for a crisis of this magnitude. The relentless droughts would have caused crop failure on a massive scale. The corn, the staple of their diet, would have withered in the fields. Their water reservoirs would have dried up, leading to severe shortages of drinking water. Famine and thirst began to spread through the population. The social contract that held Mayan society together began to fray. The king's primary role was to intercede with the gods for rain and prosperity. When the rains failed, year after year, decade after decade, the people's faith in their divine ruler would have evaporated. Why would the gods be angered? The king must have lost their favor. This climate catastrophe did not just cause an ecological disaster, it triggered a profound crisis of leadership and faith, undermining the very core of Mayan political and spiritual power. As the drought tightened its grip and resources became scarcer, the situation grew increasingly desperate. When food and water are scarce, competition for what remains becomes a fight for survival. This is exactly what happened among the Maya. The once powerful city-states, which had previously engaged in controlled warfare for captives and prestige, now descended into a brutal and endless cycle of all-out war. This was not the ritualized warfare of before, this was chaotic violence over the last remaining productive farmlands and reliable water sources. Archaeological evidence shows a sharp increase in fortifications and mass graves from this period, indicating widespread conflict and violence. This internal warfare acted as the final domino to fall. The social structure shattered. The elite class, including the kings and priests, were no longer seen as protectors but as failures who could not provide for their people. The monumental projects that defined their civilization, the pyramid building, the carving of stelae, became impossible luxuries. All energy and resources were diverted into a futile struggle for survival. Trade networks, which connected the cities and allowed for the exchange of goods and ideas, broke down completely. Isolated, starving, and fighting amongst themselves, the great Mayan cities were doomed. One by one, they were abandoned. The population did not vanish in a single day, they died in large numbers from famine and conflict, and the survivors were forced to disperse. They migrated in small groups to the coast or to other, less affected regions, leaving their grand stone cities to be swallowed by the jungle. The collapse was not an extinction of the Maya people, but a catastrophic breakdown of their political, economic, and social order. The story of the Mayan collapse is more than just an ancient history lesson, it is a powerful and sobering warning from the past. The Maya were not a primitive people. They were an incredibly advanced civilization, capable of engineering marvels and understanding the cosmos. Yet, they still fell. Their downfall was not due to a lack of intelligence, but due to a combination of environmental pressures and an inability to adapt their societal structures to a rapidly changing world. They pushed their environment to its limit, and when a severe, prolonged climate crisis hit, their complex society was too rigid and too strained to withstand the shock. Today, we face similar challenges. While our technology is far more advanced, we are also putting immense pressure on our environment through deforestation, pollution, and the emission of greenhouse gases that are driving climate change. We see our own patterns of extreme weather, including devastating droughts and floods. The lesson of the Maya is that no civilization, no matter how great or technologically sophisticated, is immune to the consequences of environmental degradation. Their story teaches us the importance of sustainability, of managing our resources wisely, and of building resilient societies that can adapt to change. The Maya show us that a civilization can be its own worst enemy if it fails to live in balance with the world that supports it. By understanding their terrifying truth, we can hopefully learn to write a different ending for our own story.